Online for Authors. I'm chatting with Christopher Kaufman, author of Tales of the Ocean City. Welcome, Christopher.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be with you, Terry.
I'm super excited. This book is very different. It's very different in terms of the book itself. It's very different in terms of the kind of books I normally read. So this will be a really fun opportunity for people to see that, you can kind of step outside of what's your normal genre, your normal way of interacting with books. But before we really dive into it, give us a quick little elevator pitch as to what they're going to find and what makes this book so different than your typical book out there.
Well, this book starts off in a classical epic fantasy world, and it's like the story of a young civilization turning the corner into the future, But before they are able to do that, they have to face a terrible enemy from their deepest past, from their actual origins. It's very intense that way. And the first 5 books are a series. The Vorm War. The enemy is called the Vorm because they're constantly changing form, and it's the whole transformational process that they go through to be who they are. And so the main characters are a young man named Harlut and his telepathic Pegasus, his lifelong friend. And actually they're called Parianths, but they're very similar to Pegasi, and they speak telepathically to each other, and they're very close. And so the beginning of the whole series, book 1, Battle in the Sky, it's called, it starts off with Harlut and Vespucian playing in the ocean and then heading off to the ocean city across the southern plain in order to join fully in the city life from where he grew up on his island. Right. But he sees the princess and her Parianth bond, as they're called, Jigla, and he's going over to say hello. And that's when enemy Vorm warriors attack them. And the first book is like a long, visceral battle, which resolves very beautifully at the end. And then the story is underway. But you asked what makes it different. And one of the main things that makes it different are the accompanying audio albums filled with cinematic music. I'm a composer. I was a composer first for many years and still live the life of a composer. But my stories never left me. And so you get both. So you get full cinematic music, graphically illustrated pages, and this story, which begins in a traditional fantasy world, but keeps evolving. And I'm now writing the second series, and it becomes a science fiction, a sci-fi epic. They're actually out in space now, exploring and dealing with things. But it starts with basic. So
I'm just curious, why did you decide epic fantasy? Why is that the genre that you said, okay, I'm going to move out of composing and I'm going to dive into writing and I'm going to do epic fantasy? Why that genre?
Well, I started actually writing fantasy stories with illustrations when I was 9 years old.
Okay.
And then I found music. I went to the New Orleans Center for Creative Arts, and I studied music, piano, played oboe, sang the bass solos in Messiah, and started composing. And then, basically lived the life of a composer all the way through to a doctorate degree in music composition and pedagogy at Cornell University. But my stories never left me, as I was saying before. And basically, I'm the type of person who has to put themselves to sleep with imaginative scenarios of various kinds. And so I completed my doctorate degree in music composition and had in my head the full event sequence of Tales of the Ocean City through book 8. Which I'm finishing now. So I've actually been working on it for 30 years, right?
Right. So you don't count sheep is what you're telling me.
No, I count adventures and enemy Vorm, and sometimes it's a Star Trek universe. It's all that kind of stuff.
Right. So what made you decide, hey, I'm going to take the written word and, hey, I'm a new author. So not only am I new, but I'm going to do something like really new and different. And I'm going to add this whole multimedia experience. What possessed you to take on that's epic in itself, that you would choose to go well beyond the norm for writing. What made you do that?
Well, to be honest, it was a very organic process. Do you remember that old series LeVar Burton did with the Reading Rainbow, I think it was called?
Yeah,
That never left me. I still think about that. And that was stories being told, and there was music. I don't know, that had an inner influence. I wasn't consciously thinking, oh, I'm going to do a Reading Rainbow.
Right.
But I was a composer, you see. And I started developing my home studio where I produce music, right here where I'm sitting, right? And so I started writing the words for the story in like 2001. And it wasn't quite happening, But when I started, let's try this. I don't even remember how I first decided to start it. But I started creating the music and doing the narration and writing all at the same time. It was like saying the words out loud and speaking them and narrating them really influenced my writing style, right? And then in the first book, I was narrating, doing the music. I don't even know which came first half the time, and writing the next part as I went. And then it became, real for me. It really came to life. And so I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, actually, I originally, sometimes I would, in the first books, I would think of the text as accompanying the music in my head.
Yeah.
Being a composer,
Absolutely. So do you happen to have a clip or something?
Oh, yes, I do. I have an introductory clip. This introduces the story and gives you an abridged version of the intro and sets us off into the adventure.
Fantastic. Well, why don't we take a quick look at that?
Tales of the Ocean City is the epic tale about a young civilization turning the corner into the future. But first they must face a terrible enemy from the deep past. The main characters are a young man named Harloot and his lifelong companion Vespucian, who is a Parianth, a kind of telepathic Pegasus. Book 1, Battle in the Sky.
"Vespucian, aloft!" cried Harloot. With a thrust of her wings, the white Pegasus shot upwards through billowing clouds. Harloot stood with his arms held out, balancing on her back. They burst into vast heights, the realm of Curlrod, the morning sun. Whose powerful beams illumined iridescent mist on his golden sphere. Far below, the ocean roared and thundered. Vespucian reached the pinnacle of her high arc. Now, she thought to him. The Pegasus hovered, and Harloot dove backwards from her haunches. In a swan dive, he clove through tiers of frothing clouds. He used his chest and arms to glide in a spiral through the planet Terroir's thick atmosphere. He reached the cool, misty air just below the clouds, jackknifed and straightened, and sliced right into the churning ocean currents. Dark purples and greens suffused his eyes as he penetrated cold, shadowy depths. He arched his back, frog-kicked, and drifted lazily up towards a ceiling of shimmering blue light. A quick flash of fiery light caught Harloot's eye. He saw a circlet of fire jade winding through the Princess Brineland's hair, which flowed about her neck and shoulders like a cloud of red and orange flames. A scarlet ribbon wound around her lithe form and down her back to meet an abundant sash. A skirt of loose swags flared about her legs in the wind. Harloot mind of the mesmerizing vision, stood on Vespucian's back and prepared to utter his call and greeting. But Vespucian suddenly pulled up short in the air and mouthed a rasping bark. Her telepathic voice rang in his mind. Danger! Alarm! Enemy! Harut instantly hunched over, gripped the mesh along her withers with one hand, and craned his neck up and to the left. He followed Vespucian's stark gaze. Multicolored whorls dissipated in the thick glaze of morning light. A blur formed at the edge of his vision and separated into 3 jagged shapes growing in size. Blood-red streaks rent the air as 3 giant warriors riding massive red and black Parians shot past, heading directly towards the princess. A mind-numbing beating sound, followed by a venomous, sweet, acrid miasma, sliced through Harlut's senses. All went dark.
All right. Wow. So that guys is one of the reasons why I said it was as different as it was, because there's a lot going on here. And you did answer one of my questions, because one of them was like, did you create the music yourself? And so the answer is yes, you created the music. Do you like hire people in to play it, or is this all done? I don't know how this is done.
Well, that's a wonderful question, and I could spend too much time on, but I'll just try to give you the quick one.
Basically, the brief version.
I started around that same time. I started writing music scoring to film.
Okay.
And my wife happened to go to school with a film composer, so I met up with him, and he helped me get my computer and my first electronic orchestra, etc. So everything you hear, I'm playing on a keyboard into a program called Logic, which has a ton of, like, I developed a huge library of sounds, east-west orchestras and classical orchestras and all these things. And so basically it is all composed that way through the electronic world and played by my fingers. So here's the orchestra right here. Here's the oboe and the flute. Okay. And of course, there's also all these cool sound design effects, which I can use in there too. I can change my voice, which I did in some other books, and add all kinds of wonderful effects and stuff for monsters and stuff like that.
Oh, I love that. That's great. So I have the same question then about your visual art. Is that something you're doing, or are you hiring that out?
No, it's all me. For the first 2 books, the ones that you're seeing there, what you saw, I took programs originally designed to make CD covers and things like this, and these programs, and I bent them to my will and created these things. And I grabbed, you might have noticed, pieces of classical art and used figures from that embedded within, because it happened organically and naturally, but what it does is give the feeling of classical art. I'm a classical musician, I'm a classical artist, and it's classical fantasy. So it gives all the correct ambiance of where I'm coming from. Now, later books, I use a program called Procreate, which I've heard of Procreate. Yeah. So the later ones, for books 3, 4, and 5, which I wrote later after a gap from books 1 and 2, that uses a different illustration system, but it's still something I create.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a question, and I'm sure this will come up because I have a lot of readers that read in a sundry ways. Can someone just read the story without the extra, or if there's no extra, is there no story?
Oh, no, absolutely. They're available on my site, kaufmantales.com. It's a Shopify store. And you have the buttons, and you can press ebooks, beautiful EPUBs, physical books. They're distributed through a place called Book Vault, which is located in the UK, and they make the most beautiful, colorful books. And of course, the audio albums are there. And there's packages with discounts with the ebooks and the audio albums. And then the video books is the newest iteration, manifestation of it, and that's on there too. So however you ingest stories, go for it. It's all there for you.
Okay, so now I'm curious as an author and the way that you write, whether or not you sit down and plot it all out and then write, or whether you're more pantser-like, where it just comes to you and that's how you came up with your story. Like, how does that process work in your head?
Well, I think it's highly influenced by my composition world, because when you plot it out, so as I said before, I emerged with my doctorate degree in music and the event structure.
Right.
So I have the complete event structure, but then as you're going from point to point, all kinds of new things happen, and it evolves, and then that influences what happens after. But even when I'm writing, like I have the large points in my mind, and I'm going actually writing it. I'll write a phrase. I'll imagine a sequence in my mind, and the challenge, of course, as everyone knows, as an author too, is getting what's in your head on page so other people can experience it. It's best possible from what is in your mind. And in this book, I'm of course doing all these wild imaginative things and visual effects, things that I imagine. So I'll write a phrase or a couple of words with a slash, words with a slash, or dot, lots of that. And then I'll put it into sentences later. So I can get a large sequence or a series of events between the large points of the sequence. But to answer your question, the large macro event structure is the beginning point.
So when you have your large macro event structure, have you ever had to change it? Like all of a sudden what you're writing changes the big structure pieces? That's one of the things I'm a pantser. I'm 100%. I just write what's in my head and out it comes, and then we see what we have. Yeah. So I always worry, like I'm going to come up with this structure and then my mind is going to say, yeah, we're not going there.
Well, so far, the large points haven't changed that much.
Okay.
They were solid enough and not filled out enough at the beginning, right? So there were a lot of openings. And
a lot of openings for this stuff to go on.
Tons of new stuff come in, but the large point structures were intact. I guess I had thought about them a lot, and that's what I started with. And the fun part, though, as I said, this story's been in my head for like 35 years.
Right.
And just now in book 8, I'm getting to the end of the event structure that I concocted all that time ago. Uh-huh. So what happens next is all new, completely new from anything I had thought of before, which is really cool because the civilization of the Ocean City and the characters is evolving and growing. And the next phase is exploring the Star Kingdom. Right. And that's all new. So I'm picking that up now.
So, and as you're doing that, are you once again using the same kind of formula where you're doing the big event pieces? Yeah. So it's So that's what
right now I'm concocting those big event pieces, but I'm also concocting the things that happen within them, and so it's more like maybe what you were saying, where it's more variable. So I have some large scale things planned, but there's a lot of things that are going to come to me when I start writing it. It's more wide open, much more wide open.
Which is similar in a lot of ways to what you were doing originally when you were thinking it through in your head, trying to fall asleep. You didn't say, oh, well, we have a plot structure we have to follow. Instead, you were just creating in your head. And so yeah. And I love the fact that there is a similarity in the way you develop music and in the way you develop your books. So the same kind of thing. Yeah.
There's a lot of things like the pacing.
Right.
That when you compose music, you're thinking about how long is the slow music versus balancing with the fast music. And it takes more energy to create the fast music. So you'll hear some pieces by a young composer and maybe they don't match. And if they don't match, if there's not enough fast music to justify the slow music, then people's minds will wander in the middle of the slow music because it wasn't, justified.
Right.
So I'm really good.
If it's all too fast, then the listener doesn't have a chance to breathe. They can't They can. So yeah, that's
So
true. And that
pacing.
is the way it is with writing as well. You need places that allow your reader to catch the
Right.
breath.
You have to know when
Right.
to pause and paint a beautiful picture.
Right.
And then when the action is going, I write really short sentences. So it really moves, really exciting, fast, and then it'll slow at a certain point. And yes, then we'll have a descriptive phrase that I'll still tailor and edit like crazy.
Well, yeah.
But,
the editing process is a whole nother thing, right?
yeah, that's actually the fun part.
Yeah. So I have a question for you, and it's probably one maybe that you've not been asked before, but your books are not available on Amazon. And that is pretty amazing in today's world, because I don't think I know of another author in which books are not available on Amazon. So I want to ask you why you chose to do that, and how's it working for you? Just curiosity on my own part.
Well, I had them on there for a while and took them down because I wanted to just control it. I might go back on later, when I have it all under control, because I had done a variety of things, Ingram and this and that and the other, and it got a little messy. So I was boiling it down. And I like the idea of communicating with my readership directly. And with Amazon, you don't get any emails, you get nothing. And then that whole feeling of, I'm an independent person, an independent composer, independent artist, and the whole idea of being usurped and into the corporate world. And it just and then they can change the prices, they can do this, they can do that. And I didn't like
and
that.
They can drop you, they can just decide they're not. Yeah, the whole thing. I know but on the other hand, there's that part of me as an author that's like, yeah, but what else do you do? And so how is that working for you? Are you able to get your name out there enough without it being on Amazon that you feel like it's working for you?
Well, even if you're on Amazon, you have to work hard to get your name out there.
Yeah.
Because there's 6 million books a year being put out, So that's actually about the same.
About the same. Okay.
So doing things like this, podcasts are new. It's really fun and exciting. I just started them fairly recently. And it's a wonderful way of just communicating to people, telling them what it is, and then they can go to kaufmantales.com and get the books as reviews and information, all kinds of stuff on there. And so we'll see if in the future I want to rejoin Amazon or not.
Yeah. Yeah. That was just one of the things that I had noticed, because I had gone on to Amazon and it was like, okay, they're saying they used to be here.
Yeah.
It says what?
It's hard to get them to remove it once it's there.
I know.
So.
But it was, I thought, oh, wow, that's very interesting. So you talked a little bit about what's next. You're writing books.
8.
So that would be 6 through 8 will be coming out at some point, right?
Yes. 6 and 7 are out.
6 and 7 are out. Okay.
And then 8 is going to be there in a few months.
Okay. And then once 8 is over, then it's the same community, but we've moved into space. Is that what I understand?
Yes, they've moved into space now. Okay. And the next part will be a new series. So you have the 5-book series and then the 3-book series called The Green World. And that's the one I'm finishing now. And then things will move forward. And it's going to keep evolving. Eventually, Harloot's great granddaughter will be the hero. And then I have an associate series I'll start in the future that's in the world, but somewhere else. And then they end up joining together. But, I haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah. Yeah. So in your mind as an author, do you ever see yourself going beyond this world that you created? I mean, I know you've got some associate worlds. Do you ever see yourself deviating from this, or do you think this is it? This is what you're going to spend your author time doing?
Well, it is for now. Now, as I said, I wrote the first 2 books, finishing up in 2012.
Okay.
And then I had about an 8 or 9 year hiatus while I did other things. And those other things included, orchestra pieces and chamber music, but also my concert series called The Fantastic Theater, where I did family theater pieces, which are also books and audio albums and video books. And they followed the life of the childhood of my daughter, because I started writing them for her and I to perform. And the first one is for the audience group of like 4 on up.
Yeah.
And it's like Peter and the Wolf on steroids. It's called The Musical Forest. It introduces musical fundamentals, through the story. And we performed it many times since she was 4, and including full orchestra when she was 7. And then I wrote The Fantastic Zoo, which is a really cool one. And, it's a great book. You can check it out. And then I wrote her a cinematic ballet called Dancing Nighthawk. Again, live show in a theater with lighting and music and the whole thing. And it's a book and a movie. You can also visit. I invite everyone to go to my YouTube channel, Sound Artists. That's Sound Art Us, Sound Artist. Dr. Sound Artist was a character in the book, The Musical Forest. That's where I got that Sound Artist word from. And you go there and you can see movies. You can see, of course, lots of Tales of the Ocean City stuff. But these other ones, Dancing Nighthawk is a full film I made of the live show. And The Fantastic Zoo, a full film of the live show. And then there's a movie I made for her. It was the last one of these before she became a teenager and grew out of it. And
grew out of doing this with Dad, right?
Yeah. And now she still participates on my show, but it's as a musician playing chamber pieces or something now.
Right.
But the last one was called The Talisman of a Hawkeen. And what I did was I filmed her on green screen and stuck her in my animated world with, of course, a terrific sound score. And so that's like a Halloween themed movie I'll invite people to go to every October.
Fantastic.
Whatever. So those were done. And then I came back to Tales of the Ocean City.
So who knows so it sounds to me like we really have no idea what Christopher might come up with next. Is that kind of the...
One would hope so. Keep it open, keep growing.
So, hey guys, if you want to keep this conversation going, head on over to Novels and Latte Book Club on Facebook. There you'll have an opportunity to win a copy of Tales of the Ocean City. Christopher's going to provide us a coupon code. So definitely run right over and tell us what you'd like to learn about this podcast. Christopher, if someone wanted to get in contact with you, talk with you about, this that you do, this amazing multimedia experience, how do they do that?
Well, I would go to my email address, which I'm happy to provide, and that's Kaufman Tales, KAUFMANTALES, Kaufman Tales at soundartists.com.
Okay.
And that's...
I'll have that in the show notes, right? I'll have that in the show notes as well as all the other ways to contact Christopher.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you so much for being with me today. This book was very interesting. And like I said, well outside of my normal, but I thoroughly enjoyed the experience.
I really appreciate you having me on and your wonderful, insightful questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Online for Authors, where I, Terry M. Brown, author of character-driven fiction and host of the podcast, introduce readers to characters they'd love to invite to lunch. Tune in next Tuesday for another podcast episode.